I should have known trouble was coming. The moment my sister's BMW rolled into my snowy driveway that Christmas Eve, she didn't smile. She didn't hug me. She just looked at the house Grandpa left me, like it was already hers. It had been snowing all morning in Portland. The front yard looked like a postcard fresh snow blanketing the lawn lights twinkling around the porch. I'd spent hours making the house warm and beautiful for the first Christmas I'd ever hosted. I wanted it to feel like family, like home, like how it used to feel when Grandpa was still with us. But when Victoria stepped out of her car designer boots cashmere coat and that permanent smirk, I knew. This wasn't going to be a peaceful holiday. Nathan, her husband, gave me a polite smile and stomped snow off his boots. He'd always been kind. Still a little awkward around our family, but kind. "Thanks for having us, Sarah," he said. And I meant it when I said of course. But Victoria didn't even pretend. She walked right in, looked around the living room, vaulted ceilings, refinished floors, the built-in bookshelves Grandpa loved, and said, "Well, you've certainly made yourself comfortable here." The tone wasn't warm. It was cold, measured, like she was evaluating a listing. I tried not to take the bait. I'd promised myself I'd play hostess, not fall into old patterns. But when she asked if I had almond milk like she expected me to forget, and when she admired Grandma's china with that sharp little smile, I knew this Christmas wasn't about family. It was about the house. And Victoria had come to take it. The first few hours passed in that familiar holiday rhythm. Dad claimed his usual armchair remote in hand, watching the weather like it might personally offend him. Mom helped me in the kitchen, then rested her hip on the couch when it started to ache. Victoria and Nathan unpacked upstairs. I heard their voices drifting down low-clipped. I was sliding a tray of cookies into the oven when I felt her beside me. "Victoria." Quiet, watchful. So she said, stirring her coffee, even though I hadn't handed it to her yet. "How's the job search going?" I didn't flinch, but my stomach tightened anyway. She already knew. Of course she did. I'd been laid off 2 months ago. Downsizing, restructuring, all the corporate words that don't soften the blow. "I've had a few interviews," I said evenly. "Freelance work's keeping me busy for now." She nodded, one of those slow, patronizing gestures people use when they think they're better than you, but want to look gracious about it. "Must be hard," she said, her voice sweet but sharp, keeping up with a house like this on gig work. I shut the oven door a little harder than necessary. "I'm managing." "Oh, I'm sure," she said, walking over to the window like we were just chatting. "But if it ever gets too much, the housing market's hot right now. Portland buyers are hungry for craftsman homes." And there it was. Not even 24 hours in my home, and she was already circling it like a shark. "I'm not selling," I said. She gave that practiced shrug. The one she'd mastered in college. "Just thinking about your future. It's a lot of space for one person." But before I could answer, the doorbell rang. Uncle Bill and Aunt Carol bundled in scarves, arms full of wine and baked goods. A perfect interruption. I smiled. I welcomed them in. I played hostess like nothing was wrong. But in the back of my mind, something had shifted, and I knew Victoria hadn't just come for Christmas. She'd come with a plan. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I was cleaning up the living room. The lights from the Christmas tree shimmered across the walls, soft and golden. Nathan had gone upstairs to take a work call. It was just the two of us again. Victoria swirled the last of her wine in her glass, staring at the fire. "Sarah," she said, "I've been talking to a real estate attorney about Grandpa's will." The room didn't feel so warm anymore. "Really?" I said. She nodded, slow and deliberate. "There may have been some confusion about the terms of inheritance, about this house." "There's no confusion," I said. "Grandpa left it to me. His will was clear." Victoria leaned forward, voice low and falsely tender. "The attorney says there might be a codicil, a later addition to the will. One that says the house was to be shared equally between us. With you staying until certain conditions were no longer met." What conditions, I asked, though I already knew. She smiled. Stable employment, financial responsibility, maintenance, things like that. My jaw tightened. That's not what the will says. I have a copy. She waved her hand like I was a child showing a crayon drawing. Your copy doesn't include the codicil. Grandpa added it later, quietly. He was concerned about your financial habits. My fingers curled around the armrest. Student loans. My brief move back home after college. That's what she meant. She was twisting ordinary life into some kind of failure. I said nothing, just stared at her. Victoria sipped her wine and smiled wider. Nathan and I could buy you out, she said. At full value, you could get a condo, something easier to manage. And I knew then, without a shadow of doubt, she didn't want a share of the house. She wanted it all. She said I was unstable. Not outright, of course, Victoria never says things directly. But in her voice, in every word about financial concerns, it was there. The judgment, the angle. My financial history, I asked, keeping my voice steady. She meant the student loans I'd finally paid off, the few months after college when I moved home. To her, that was weakness. Proof I didn't deserve this house. There is no codicil, I said. You're making this up. I'm trying to help you, Sarah, she replied with that awful condescending sweetness. Nathan and I could make a fair offer. You'd have enough for a nice condo? I stared at her. Did she really believe she was the hero in this story? No, I said. Calm, clear, final. She blinked. Just for a moment, she looked surprised. You're unemployed. It's only a matter of time. I'm freelancing, and taxes are paid through next year. The mask dropped. Her voice turned sharp. This house was Grandpa's legacy. It should be preserved by someone with real means. I've spent 3 years preserving it. You can't keep up forever, Sarah. I stood, done. I think you need to talk to your lawyer again. The house is mine. Legally. Completely. She rose too, always a few inches taller, always needing to loom. Mom and Dad agree with me, she said, like it was a trump card. They think it's time you considered our offer. That hurt more than I let show. You already dragged them into this. They're worried about you. I took a breath, forced myself not to react. We're done here, Victoria. Good night. I walked away. I could feel her watching me the whole way upstairs, cold, calculating, and certain this wasn't over. I barely slept. All night I turned over her words in my mind. That smug voice, that threat disguised as concern. Victoria didn't want to help. She wanted to win. By morning, snow had covered the yard again. The air was sharp, the sky clear. I was already in the kitchen making French toast, whisking eggs harder than necessary just to stay grounded. Daniel and Melissa arrived with their daughter, Lily. Their energy filled the house like warm light, Lily running to the Christmas tree, Melissa complimenting the kitchen. You refinished the cabinets, she asked. Over the summer, I said, smiling for the first time in hours, and then Victoria walked in. Good morning, she said just a little too brightly. The tension returned, subtle but heavy. We ate breakfast. Lily's stories about preschool saved the conversation. I clung to her chatter like a lifeline. But once everyone dispersed, the trap sprang again. Did you think about what I said, Victoria asked, when we were alone? Nathan stood nearby, awkward. There's nothing to think about, I said, clearing dishes. The house is mine. We're offering market value? Nathan added gently. With your renovations, it's a good deal. It's not about money, I said. It's about Grandpa's wishes. It's about you lying about a codicil. Victoria's eyes narrowed. Fine. If you want it messy, we'll do it the hard way. She said it just loud enough for me to hear right as footsteps came down the stairs. I didn't reply, but in my heart, I made a decision. If she wanted a fight, I'd be ready. That evening, we gathered around the fireplace. The Christmas lights flickered gently, and for a moment, it almost felt like a normal holiday. Until Victoria spoke. So she said, tone too casual, Sarah hasn't told you about the changes we're discussing. The room went quiet. What changes, Mom asked. She thinks there's a codicil in Grandpa's will, I said calmly. There isn't. Victoria smiled tight and practiced. My attorney believes otherwise. And with Sarah's employment situation, I'm freelancing, I said quickly. I'm doing fine. She was laid off, Victoria added, looking right at our parents. It affects the legal arrangement. Dad set his drink down, slowly. That's not what Harold's will said. You didn't see the updated version, Victoria insisted. I was the executor, Dad said flatly. There was no codicil. Victoria faltered. The attorney said James Wilson. Dad let out a dry chuckle. James Wilson retired 5 years ago. Try again. And just like that, her story cracked. But she didn't stop. Sarah can't keep this place up. Nathan and I should manage the house. It's our family legacy. You want to take her house? Daniel asked, stunned. It's not just hers, Victoria snapped. He only left it to her out of pity. I took care of him. I deserved it. The room went silent. For the first time, her real motivation spilled out resentment. Entitlement. That's when I stood up. Enough, I said. If we're talking about who Grandpa trusted, then everyone should hear this. I walked to the desk, pulled out a folder. I hadn't wanted to use it. But I'd learned with Victoria Hope wasn't a strategy. I unfolded the paper slowly. Grandpa's handwriting covered both sides. When Grandpa left me the house, I said he also left me this. A letter? He knew you might challenge his decision. Victoria crossed her arms. It doesn't change the legal facts. Oh, but it does. I pulled out a second document. Grandpa didn't just give me the house. He gave me the mortgage. The second one, $200,000. Her face froze. He took it out to cover medical bills. But $50,000 went to you and Nathan for your down payment. Nathan cleared his throat. That was a gift. Dad's voice cut in. No, it wasn't. It was a loan. I was there when he wrote the check. I held up the clause. And he added that loan would be forgiven only if the will was respected. If it's contested? I paused. I have every right to collect it. With interest, I added, which makes it about $70,000 now. Victoria stared at me speechless. You can sue if you want, I said calm now. But if you do, I'll file to collect the debt. She looked around the room, but there were no allies left. The room was still. You could hear the antique clock ticking over the mantel. Victoria looked at me then, at the papers in my hand. You're bluffing, she said, but her voice was thin. I handed her the folder. Take a look. She didn't, just stared at Dad searching for rescue. But he gave her nothing. I don't want your money, Victoria, I said quietly. I never did. I just want the house Grandpa left me, the peace to live in it. For a moment, I thought she'd fight back again. But she stood abruptly. I need some air. Nathan followed her. The door closed behind them. For a long beat, no one spoke. Then Mom turned to me. Why didn't you say anything sooner? I didn't want it to get this far, I said. I thought maybe she'd let it go. Daniel shook his head. She never lets anything go. Melissa put a hand on my shoulder. You handled it. Dad gave a quiet nod. Your grandfather would have been proud. A few minutes later, the front door opened again. Victoria and Nathan stood in the entryway. Her eyes were red. Her posture softer. I don't want to ruin Christmas, she said, voice low. Can we just put this aside for now? I nodded. It's Christmas Eve. We're still family. She sat far from me, said little, but stayed. Later that night, as everyone headed to bed, she paused on the stairs. I was wrong, she said. Just that. Nothing more. I nodded. She looked over her shoulder. The cabinets look good. You did a good job. It wasn't forgiveness, but maybe it was a start. I stayed downstairs, turning off lights, checking doors. Then I paused by the tree. In the reflection of a silver ornament, I saw myself small but centered. This was my home. My turn to protect it. I whispered to the empty room, thanks, Grandpa. And in the quiet, I could almost hear him answer. You earned it, kiddo. Don't let anyone tell you different.